Hi there, it's Suzanne from the Marks Group with this month's Zoho Tips and Tricks. I have three, as always, three tips for you this month. I just want to say for the people who are viewing live, I do have my Q&A panel up, so you can always submit questions as you're viewing live. For those watching this as recorded, you can always contact the Marks Group with any questions via the website, marksgroup.net. So let me get started on our three tips today. So the first one actually has to do with a relatively new feature on the mobile app called Check-in. And it's just like on Facebook or some of the other social apps where you can check in to a place, and when you do that, it captures the time and your location. So Zoho mobile app has that very same feature. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to just show you some screenshots of where it is and what happens when you check in. Since we can't really demonstrate our mobile app with this medium. So, all right, so let me jump into that one. And then following that, we're going to be talking about managing data sharing and permission control and that kind of thing. So some security settings. Those are the next two tips have to do with that as well. Okay, so let me switch over to my screen share. Oops. Why is it doing that? All right, hold on a second. Go back over to here. Oh, I know what's happening. Hold on, just bear with me for 1 second. I shared the wrong screen in my two-screen setup. So just hang with me. We need to share this one. There we go. All right, that's better. All right, now let me switch over, and we won't be going to infinity and beyond. Okay, so back to check-in. Switching screens, there we go. Okay, so the first thing you would do is actually create an event record, and you can create that event record on the web app or the mobile app. So you would create an event record in your CRM, and for this purpose, I called mine Check-in Demo. So the new mobile app, if you haven't seen that yet, get rid of this. Okay. If you haven't seen that yet, good Lord, it's just not a good start today. Here we go. When you first log in, you're looking at your events for the day, so it's actually pretty nice. So when you first log in, you'll see all your events. So when you click on that event, this is the screen that you come to. So I had check-in demo on my list. I clicked on check-in demo, and this is what I was looking at. And down below here, let me pull this up a little bit so you can see it. And of course, now it's obscured by the Google Hangout thing. Down below here is a little check-in icon. Okay, so all I have to do when I'm getting ready to check into my appointment is click that icon. And why would you ever want to use this? So one thing you can do is if it's kind of a terrible thing to say, but if you don't really trust your employees or what they doing what they should be doing, this is a great tool to say to ask your employees to check into their appointments so that you can see they got there on time and they were just clicking that icon. Let me put that down. It just creates this note. And this is what it looks like on the mobile app, that I checked in and where I was and what time that I checked in. So it says, checked in today, 3:31. So you can see, oh, I was supposed to be there at 3:15 and didn't get there till 3:31, strike one. And the meeting's in Plymouth meeting, why is she checking in at West Goshen? So it's just kind of a way you can check up on people, sad to say. And so that's what it looks like on the mobile app. And then I just want to show you what it looks like in the web app. So I'm going to put this down. And here is, we don't need to see that. Here is the the same event in my web application. And here it just basically, it gets captured as a note, and it gets a timestamp, and it also has a map with a pinpoint on it. So it's you know, a lot of great information with literally the click. You know, all you got to do is like click that little icon, and all this information gets captured and stored in the record. So that's check-in, a really great feature. Again, you know, it's really good to just demonstrate that people are where they say they are when they should be. So that's check-in. All right, let's move on. My next tip has to do with managing data sharing. So I do get a lot of these questions. I'm going to go ahead and click that, reload the page. I do get a lot of these questions from my clients, and so I just kind of wanted to take a few minutes and explain some of the user settings. The other thing I meant to mention is I am using the new interface. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of, if you're a Zoho user, you've seen that Zoho has come out with a new version. They're calling it Zoho 2016. And it's new, not only a new user interface, but there's a bunch of new features. Some of them are big, some of them are small. But it's, there's a lot of great new features in here. So this is what the new user interface looks like. So I'll try to point out some differences as I go along. First thing is, if you do any kind of your own customization, the setup used to be up in the bar, and now it's under this little tools icon. So we go into setup. And turn my phone sound down. Okay, so I go into setup, and I'm going to go into users and control. So before it was all under users. Now there's a separate area for roles and profiles. So I'm going to go into security control. And here's where I have my profiles and my roles and my data sharing settings. So, you know, the first time you look at this, this can be a little confusing, just trying to understand what each of these different things is doing, and, you know, and how they're overlapping and interacting. So that's kind of what these next two tips are about. So the first one has to do with data sharing. So, you know, some of my clients, they're wide open. They have team salespeople, everybody can see everybody's data, and it's all good. There are, you know, other clients, things are a little more divided. So they just want to make sure that salespeople can't see, you know, other salespeople's records. And sometimes it's kind of a mix, like they want them to be able to see certain things, but not other things. So that's what all these tools will let you do. So let's first talk about roles. So let's take the situation where you have, you know, you have a sales manager and some sales people. And so you definitely, you know, you would want the sales manager to see everybody's data, but the sales people only to see their own data. So how would we set up roles for that? So what we're looking at right now is the standard out-of-the-box setup for Zoho CRM. So the top role is CEO, and then there's a manager. So let's change this up to fit our scenario of a sales manager and salespeople. So one of the things you can do is you can just change the name of standard. So instead of manager, I can just call this, whoops, good be spell right, sales manager. He reports to the CEO. And then this box is whether or not sales managers would share data to their peers, other sales managers. So if you have a system that is a multi-sales manager system, then if you click this box, then they can share data across each other. Forecast manager, that's a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get in that on this tip, but one of these days we'll go through forecasting and how all that works. But for now, I just want to stick on this. So I just changed the name to sales manager. I'm going to save it. Okay. And now I can assign people, or these are my two users that I have in the system. There's demonstration users that are assigned to that role. So now what I want to do is I want to create a salesperson role, and I don't have another one in there, so I'm going to have to create a new one. So I'm going to call this salesperson, and the salesperson reports to the sales manager. There we go. And again, we have this box, share data with peers. So if I check that, that means that all the salespeople can see each other's data. If I don't check it, that means they can't. So depending on what kind of sharing you want to have, you check or don't check that box. And then description, that's on all the roles. It was on sales manager as well. You can just add some textual information in there of what this role is intended to be. And then I'm going to hit save. And that's really all there is to it. And then we need to assign the roles. So right now I don't have anybody assigned as this role, but we'll go ahead and change that. We'll change one of those managers to a salesperson. And then the other thing I want to point out is the data sharing settings all rolls into this. So for my data sharing settings, you have to make sure that in order for the roles to be enacted, all of your data needs to be private. If I change this, I can do edit all default permissions. They all come up, and then I can change them to whatever. So if I wanted to completely open up my system, then I would make everything public, read, write, delete. So I make everything public, I don't worry about roles, and that's a wide open system. If I need to be controlling who can see what, then I need to make everything private and set up my roles and permissions accordingly. Okay. So that is that. And let's go back and let's show how now you assign a role. So we have those 3 roles, and now I want to make one of those managers a salesperson. So let's make this little demo user a salesperson. So how do I change that? I click on demo user, and I come under here and I click that. Oops. Back, I hit the wrong button. So we're all getting used to this new user interface. Used to be an edit button there. Oh, here we go. I was in the right place. Sorry for that. So it used to be each piece had their own, you had a profile and then the role, and now it's, you would just click on the roles over here. Okay, so let me go to demo user. Okay, ignore what I just said before, and I don't know why the system is taking so long. But I'm going to click back into demo user. Sometimes when it gets hung up like this, refresh is your friend. Okay, but to change a role or profile, I can demonstrate on this while we're waiting for that. You hit the, oh, there we go. So again, this is the new user interface. It looks a little different for users. Here's your deactivate button over here. You can delete the user down here. And I can also edit. So here's where that pops up, and I see my role and profile, and I can change that to salesperson. Save. Okay. So it's worth it to mention at this point. So that was roles. Let me go back into security control. So that was roles. So we have these roles, and that's all about data sharing. So salespeople can only see data at their level. It's hierarchical in nature. So salespeople can only see data at their level. And then sales managers can see their data and below. So they can see their data and all their salespeople and all the salespeople data. CEO can see everything. So it's hierarchical in nature. The higher up you are, the more data you can see. The lower you are, the more segregated your information is. So that's roles. And then profiles, let's talk a little bit about that. So I'm kind of segueing into my third tip, which is about permissions. So that was, again, roles is all about data sharing. Profiles is all about permissions, what you have permission to do in the system. The two standard profiles are administrator, which is all powerful, and standard, which is everything except for what's considered administrative. And those are things like creating fields, changing names of modules, things that affect everybody. Those are administrative permissions. Okay, so so this is how you would set up kind of permissions at a profile level. My third tip actually has to do with adjusting permissions on a field level. So like I said, you can have permissions set up that, standard user can see every module, but maybe you don't want the standard user to see a certain field in a module. So let me show you how you would close that down. So that is under customization, modules. And I'll just pick anything here. I'm just going to open up accounts. And just to show you, this isn't a great scenario, but like, let's say we're going with industry for whatever reason. We don't want any standard user to be able to see the industry field. So I notice when I hover over the industry field, and this is an administrative privilege that I'm doing right now, so standard users would not be able to do this. This is something your administrator would set up. You hover over it, the gear wheel comes up, and you can set permission. So I can, for each of the profiles I have defined in my system, I can set field level permissions of what they're allowed to do. And it's read and write, read only, or don't show. So I can actually hide this field. I want to hide it to the administrator. You never want to hide anything from the administrator. Read and write, or you can hide it from the standard user and say don't show. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. But again, that's how at the field level you can control permissions. So it's a little different because all the other control happens under the user area setting, and then this one is specific to each module. So I have to go to the field and change permission. All right. Okay, yeah, I think that's what I had. So sorry, we're a little bit choppy today, but hopefully you found my tips useful. Again, we had 3 tips: check-in feature in the mobile app. Really great way to check up on your salespeople, make sure they are where they say they are, when they say they are. So check-in feature is awesome. And then the last 2 tips had to do with profiles and roles, which controls your data sharing and permissions. So how to set up your data sharing, and also how to set up permissions of what people are allowed to do in the system, all the way down to the field level of what they can see. Okay, so hopefully those, like I said, you found those useful, and we'll be back in September with 3 more tips. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.